All right, so thank you everybody for joining today, taking time out of your day to learn a little bit more about how you can make your business successful. So today I'm very excited. We have the Moovila team with us, and they are going to share with us the trends and best practices for MSP when it comes to managing your projects. Just want to remind everybody that these are partner-led sessions. So we are partners that listen to the community, to our community, and we just want to grow this. Make sure that we are able to collaborate with each other by asking questions and being active. We have some active channels on Slack. This will be recorded, will be published, and take advantage of these sessions and ask our guests in order to enhance your business. If you have any suggestions on future sessions that you would like to see, just reach out to your facilitators. And we get together and we have a good roadmap for this year, but we can always adjust in order to meet people's needs and people's desires here. And we want to make connections. So again, go to the Slacks. We have a lot of in-person events. We were just talking about the user groups that are coming up, and there's no better way really to learn than from each other and from our experiences. Speaking of that, we do have upcoming sessions. So this next week, we're going to have an open mic. The open mic are basically designed to come in and let's just talk about something. Somebody might have a question, the whole hour can be around that topic, or they can be just multiple questions, and we can just talk about it. Or you can just tell us, about pickleball, and we can talk about that. So anything, again, it's just again to create that engagement. Next month, for the people that are in the North Central region, the Q1 user group is going to be in Chicago, and it's going to be at Wrigley Field on March 14th. And we're also going to have another webinar next month, and it's going to be around the new ConnectWise learning management system. So if you train your team for the older ConnectWise training on the university, you notice there is a new environment in there, and you're struggling with it. They're going to come in and explain how to manage that and take advantage of the new courses and how you manage your team and track those. And then April, the Charlotte group is going to have their user group. Still more details to come in there, and also the Philadelphia group at Adventure Aquarium. And if you go to the university and just go to the user groups, you'll find all the information in there as they become available, and also the registration links. And the webinar for April is going to be all around Sidekick and RPA, so all about their focus on hyper automation. So we're going to have a session all around that. Also, Secure is open, and registration. Yeah, registration is open for Secure, which is going to be June 3rd through the 5th. So make sure that also on the university, just look for Secure. You'll find the registration link if you're interested. All right, very important. These are partner-led. I mentioned earlier, if you have a topic that would you like to hear, let us know. If you have a topic that you think you're super awesome and you want to share with people, let us know, and we'll put you on the schedule, and we'll try to bring you in so you can share that with the team. So we have a call for speakers, not only for the virtual webinars, but also for the user groups. So if you see a topic for one of the user groups that you think you might be able to add value or just participate along with the ConnectWise team or along with another partner, just let your facilitator know. Okay, I know for the Chicago group, looking for if you want to be on the cybersecurity panel, we're going to have a panel around cybersecurity. More topics around cybersecurity, and also managing users on the end user portal and things like that. So if you have any experience, so you just got to provide your thoughts. Let us know. You don't have to prepare the content. We'll put you in contact with the right people, and you can, we just want to hear your thoughts and hear your experiences. As we get ready, make sure that we make this interactive. So ask questions. You can unmute yourself. I'll check if last time I forgot to unmute. So you can go ahead and unmute yourself and participate. If you don't want to feel like speaking, just type it in the chat. We'll monitor the chat, and then we'll be able to ask those questions to the team. And with that, today we have the honor of having with us the Moovila team. We have Kate, Vince, and Louis with us. They're going to share with us the trends on best practices for MSP when it comes to projects. And obviously, they have a fantastic tool that can help us through this and enhance what we currently do when it comes to managing projects inside of ConnectWise and make things a lot more flexible with better management. I'm not going to steal your thunder. I'm going to let you guys do that. So with that, Louis, thank you so much for sharing that information with us. And also thank you, Kate and Vince, for being with us today. So I'm going to mute myself now and make sure that everybody has the capability of getting themselves on mute. So
awesome. Thanks, Juan. If we can just jump past this, Louis, since we kind of got a little intro. The only thing I want to call out on this slide, we've got our emails. If you want to grab those quick, we can drop them in later. You can also find Louis and myself on Discord in a lot of the different Discord groups, MSP Geek and some of the ones out there, or on Reddit. So feel free to reach out anytime. But we've got Vince, who is our head of sales and partner development, business development. Louis Bagdonas, who you may or may not have met. I think I see a few of our customers on here today. He's one of our onboarding aficionados. He's super, super knowledgeable and working with many hours with MSPs every week, onboarding them to our project management tool. So he's kind of seen a lot, and he's going to share a lot of the trends that we covered today. And then I'm our head of growth marketing. I engage with a lot of people in the different communities and channels, Slack, things like that. So if you have questions for us, content you want to see, questions about project management, you can always reach out to me and I can help you get in touch with the right person. And as Juan mentioned, we are Moovila. We have an AI project management and resource management platform. This is a discrete math-based AI tool, so it's a little bit different from like an RPA or an Automate type situation. It's very human guided, and we basically help you automate your projects through templates and through advanced analytics to do better professional service project delivery. We've got a lot of MSP clients, as well as other industries. We're very heavy in manufacturing. And we are a ConnectWise certified integrator. We just retook our certification. We take that very seriously. Integration is kind of our big differentiator in helping MSPs perform project management and make sure their data is still good data when it goes back to the PSA. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Louis to kind of cover what we're going to talk about today and kick off the trends.
Perfect. Thanks, Kate. As Juan said, as interactive as possible. I'm really good at going down rabbit holes and talking about very specific things around projects and professional services. So please jump in. So we just wanted to start real quick on how we define project management. And what's really interesting is we've come into the MSP space, and as Kate said, we've been around for a while in project management, but more focused on the MSPs over the last couple of years, year and a half. And early last year, a lot of the conversations we had with folks were around, do you have a definition for a project within your organization, right? People would say, well, I run it through a service ticket, or then it goes to a project. And it was kind of like, how do you know where that line is that defines work as a project? And we look at it as anything that has a definite start and end that might include phases and milestones. It might not be specific to the professional services side of an organization, right? For most of our clients that we see, they run their new managed service client onboardings through the project team. We also have clients that include projects in their managed service agreements as well too. So we help classify and organize those. But really, what we would like to always push and what we talked about a lot early last year was just have a definition for it within your organization so that you can define the process of how you handle your projects. And when we convert from an op to either a service ticket or a project within ConnectWise, making sure that's clear and understood within your organization. I'll try not to be too long-winded here so that we can get to the demo. But as I said last year, a lot around what was a project. It's a really interesting time as well too that we're seeing a number of organizations that have grown to the point where they recognize that they need a project manager. One thing that I really like about the MSP market is, and the industry, is that y'all pretty quickly understand why a project manager is important. For most organizations, and from where I've come in the past, that's one of the hardest things for leadership and organizations to understand is why you need a project manager, right? And that's how most people get into project management. Their dispatch portal managers really effective, or their solutions architects are really good. They come from an engineering background, and they're organized. They can get things done on time, so they can manage projects as well. But then it gets to a certain point where you're managing the project and you're doing all that day-to-day work, and it becomes too much. So we saw a lot of MSPs starting to bring in skilled, trained project managers, or transitioning folks that were having duplicate roles just into a project management role. Project management overall, we saw as a trending service. Just ScalePad's annual report, their 2024 report that came out, I think, last week, Kate, or maybe even this week.
This week.
Yeah, they ranked project management as the 5th most popular service in 2023, and that almost 52% of MSPs are focusing on expanding that here into 2024. We also saw a lot on the technology standpoint that a lot of PSAs released Kanban features last year. A lot of people demanding integration. As Kate said, we're a ConnectWise certified event partner. We saw a lot of people that were using duplicate systems, duplicate entry. They would use some other tools out there to build out plans, but then they might have 3 to 4 tickets in their projects in ConnectWise where engineers are putting time on and they're managing duplicate systems. And you also, when you're doing that, you never really have a way to go back and dissect that project and figure out what happened. Last thing, then we'll get into this a little bit as well too, is just the recognition of autonomous project monitoring and management, right? So we've got automation everywhere. It's talked about all the time at every conference that we went to last year. It was that and cybersecurity. Those are the top 2 topics that we heard discussed, and project management isn't necessarily an outlier from that. A lot of people recognize that you can automate some of your monitoring and management of projects and those processes. Kate, did I miss anything? Anything you want to add for 2023, what we saw last year?
No, I think the big thing was project management was super hot. It was one of those things that started last January. I think I saw a long chat that ended up lasting a couple months in MSP Geek and on Reddit. And kind of by the end of the year, there were threads on MSP Reddit and a lot of different groups. It's just a very common thing that a lot of people are curious and asking questions about. So it's definitely something, if your organization is trying to get better in those places, I recommend, asking in this group or in other groups, because there's a lot of discussion starting about it in many, many different communities.
Yeah. So coming into this year, 2024, we're already almost, a month and a half through it already, which is crazy. But what we saw kind of December coming out of IT Nation and then already into January is people recognizing that, you need to focus on the portfolio projects as a whole. As I mentioned, projects are continuing to grow. A lot of people, I think, thought that their projects and their professional services would kind of taper off once you get those new managed service clients in. But I think what we're seeing is there's so many compliance and cybersecurity projects right now that it's continuing to pick up for folks. And because it's continuing to pick up, you have a lot more projects, and you need to look at all of those as a whole, right? You can't look at your projects as an island. They all impact each other. You have shared resources across all of those different projects. You have project managers across those. So really just the focus on the overall portfolio and that impact to margin and capacity and burnout and. I think what we'll see as well too is most people typically have one PM and one engineer on one project, and they like to keep one engineer there. I think we'll start to see multiple engineering resources start to work on projects. We're also seeing a focus on goals and KPIs. So service leadership, when they came out with the profitability report last year, one of their big things was that professional service margins were down, and they were down to the point that they were starting to bring down the overall margin for MSPs. I think with that focus, more people are going to be focusing on creating specific goals and KPIs for their projects. Of course, one being margin. That's usually one of the most important ones, right? And then also with that, there's a lot of rigor and attention to SLAs for service tickets. And I think we're going to start to see the same sort of rigor go into projects. We've talked to people who try not to give due dates on projects to customers. We hear that more often than you would think. For me, coming from a customer standpoint and a client standpoint, that's always the first thing I ask for. What's it going to cost and when's it going to be done, right? So I think the focus around due dates for projects is going to pick up this year. Another thing we're seeing a lot of, and especially around templates and some of the things that we're going to show you a little bit later on templates, is standardizing your service product offerings. So a lot of people will get in and they'll say every single project's different. Nothing's the same. We can't templatize everything. When we start to dig into it, we've got the same administrative tasks at the beginning and the end of that project. And then it's those middle pieces that change based on that customer's environment or their network or how many locations. But, it's a firewall and a switch, or two firewalls and a switch. So kind of chunking out those different product offerings and then tying all those together. And then the last big one, I think, because people are starting to recognize the autonomous project monitoring and management, we'll see the application of that coming into this year. And then I think we're going to see people go beyond the Kanban, as we're calling it, and starting to embrace the critical path. So the Kanban, great tool. It's been around for a long time. I think since about the 1940s is when Toyota started using it. It's great, agile, just in time. But what we like to focus on is the critical path allows you to really start to leverage AI on projects, and it is a good visual key to see the overall life cycle of the project. It's a good tool to be able to show your customer. You can quickly and easily pinpoint where that issue is. You can drop in scope creep and see how that impacts your overall critical path. So just a couple more details on that. I've only got a couple more slides to go through here, and we'll hand it over to Vince to demo. But this here is a example of a critical path. And as we talked about, we've got that circle there highlighted, and we can quickly see as we're going through this project what's been completed. Okay, we've got something that's gone off the rails here and something that's late. And then how does that now impact every other ticket that's downstream in this project? So the critical path allows you to follow best practice, make sure you have key pieces of information on each of your tickets between durations, work estimates, dependencies, work role required, skilled required to get specific tickets done. We, of course, can see structural flaws as well, too. So, hey, this is illogical. You told me that you needed to order the equipment before the equipment could be delivered, right? That's a pretty easy example to see. We've got some structural flaws in our plan. Of course, those delays that we mentioned, but then also, as we have multiple work streams happening at the same time, as MSP projects often do, we can see where we stacked up with capacity conflicts, right? Where do we have insufficient time? And to what we talked about earlier, when are we going to have to start bringing in multiple engineers on a project if we want to be able to still hit that overall timeline and due date that we've set with our customer? Any questions so far? Just take a quick pause.
I always have questions, but I'll wait.
Sure.
I'll just point out that the critical path part, I know some MSPs are converting like project techs or other roles into their project managers, but for those of you hiring from the outside and like asking for a PMP, that is a big deal to them. Critical path is something that PMPs are trained on, and it's a bigger deal in the project management specific certification industry. So I think if you're taking this back to team members, that's probably the part to really talk to them about as far as trends and different things.
Yeah, and if y'all are looking for PMPs and interview questions that you need, if you want some really specific critical PMI words to drop to ask them to see if they know what they're talking about, let us know. Because if you ask them, hey, what's float? And then they go, well, you put root beer in it, then they're probably not actually PMP. So, or their dad, like myself or Vince, because I would make that joke. So
I was just interested when you talk about the trends and the emphasis for MSP focusing more on projects, and what's been the big change. On all I could think of when it comes to us is, if I look at 10 years ago, we used to just have our traditional projects. And I was like, it's a server installation, it's a switch installation, or some sort of migration. So the things that we were very, we had a lot of knowledge on that, and it was just like the run rate. But I think the landscape changes very often, right? So now we're doing a lot of onboarding. We want to tweak our onboardings. We're adding cybersecurity. Now we're adding new products into our stack. And I think I feel like that could be some of those change factors, right? That we need to bring something that it is very structured. We have a template in order to be successful, be able to track it for the client, like you said, like identify the resources to meet expectations with the client. Is that kind of like the trend that you see when because it's changing so fast and all the new requirements and products that we add?
Yeah, absolutely. And you make a couple of great points in there, Juan. One is, this delay here, this is an easy way. If this is on the customer and you were waiting for them to get you information back, this is a pretty easy way to say, hey, this is on you. Look what you were doing to the rest of the project there. I think too, a lot of people underestimate, or I don't want to say underestimate, right? But monthly recurring revenue is great. It's easy to forecast. You know where it's going to land. We have a lot of people that leadership will come to the PM at the end of the month and be like, hey, we still need to pick up an extra like 60 grand of revenue this month. You got any projects you can pull in that we can get done and we can bill for? Right. So to your point, there are additional services and products and offerings that we can give to our customers that say, hey, we can do the cybersecurity project for you on top of what we're already providing you. More benefit to the customer and also more benefit to your revenue and margin and just what you can offer your customers. And then, I think the open public forum for CISA for their new regulations that wraps up, is it next month or the month after? And I think once the compliance requirements start coming out and continue to grow, there's just going to be a lot more projects associated with that for MSPs internally and then for their customers as well. So real quick on APMM, and then Vince is going to show it how we use it as well, or how we use it in our tool. But autonomous project monitoring and management, kind of think of it as APMM as RMM for your projects, right? It is always looking at your project. It's looking at how good of a project have you built? Does it have a good structure? Do you have all the critical pieces of information on each of your tickets and your overall project? And then also, how are you performing against your budget, and how are you performing against the timeline and the due dates that you've set? It's got 4 main components to it. It's got diagnostics, right? So being able to look at the structural flaws and the delays in that project plan. Remediation and recasting is a big one, but it's also important to note that you want to remediate in the correct order. If you have late tasks and capacity conflicts, it doesn't do you a whole lot of good to fix your capacity conflicts if you're just going to go and change all of your dates, right? So walking through that remediation in the right order. Monitoring and communication is huge. Again, 24/7 monitoring, and then giving us the visuals and the dashboards and the ability to communicate clearly with our customers. For me, just from where I've come from with projects, the proactive and early detection is huge. If you can find an issue on a project 2 months before it's going to happen, and you can have that conversation with the customer, that is a whole lot easier on your stress, on your customer's life. If you have that earlier than the day of, and you say, hey, so this happened, we didn't get the switch in, we're going to be 2 months late on getting your new warehouse set up for you, right? If you can call that out 2 months earlier, I've always found that that typically goes over a lot better, right? And then the last key piece to this is integrations. So you have ConnectWise, you have your PSA, it's your central source of truth. All your project information, it needs to flow in there if you're using an alternate tool to do it. We're all busy enough. There's no reason for PMs or engineers to be putting duplicate information in multiple systems, right? That just it's not effective, and you need to be able to report out and have your central source of truth and have all that data be clean and good, and try to stay away from anything that's contaminated. And when we're duplicate and we're entering, you just have a higher chance of contaminating that data as well too. So just, wrap up areas if we could leave a couple of things with you on what you could focus on and look at this year on your projects and professional services to lead the pack is see what you can automate, right? Whether it's workflows, an additional tool, that automation is going to help you to accelerate revenue capture, improve your cash flow, improve your margins, hit your delivery times, right? Of course, hitting budget, hitting delivery times, that's going to lead to customer satisfaction there. And again, detect those issues early on. And of course, resources are important here as well too. So optimizing your resource utilization and allocation, as we've mentioned, and Kate and I and Juan have all said, you're not paying your engineers to schedule and coordinate. That's what a PM should be doing. And as your projects continue to grow, you want your engineers doing the work. So optimizing when they're working, what they're working on, making sure that you're hitting those timelines, and having a dedicated resource or a tool that helps take that burden off so that you can optimize your allocation and capacity. So with all this that we've talked about, right, of course, we have a tool that helps you do all these things. As we mentioned, we're newer to the MSP space, only a couple of years, but we develop pretty quick and we make changes very fast. So we understood that early on, MSPs scheduling down to the hour is very important. So of course, we built out scheduled events in our system, which map to those scheduled resources and meetings in ConnectWise. But we take it another step further to identify any risks associated with those. So just an example of a needs attention dashboard that we can build out in our platform, but we can say, hey, just this week across all my projects, across my entire portfolio, show me any scheduled resources that are late, that I haven't checked that box or marked done. Also, as we're using the critical path to reforecast out all of our tickets and start and due dates and the overall timeline of the project, as things change and shift, where do we have resources scheduled that now don't make sense? So if you have an engineer scheduled to go on site and you've had to push out because equipment's delayed, you want to make sure you change that on that individual's calendar, right? And clear visibility to that across the portfolio is going to make that a lot easier for you. And then one of the other new features that we have, and Juan, I appreciate the softball that you gave us there on templates and tracking your work and seeing how it's going. So we have template analytics in our platform now that allow you to see exactly how long things are actually taking you from a budgeted hours and a duration standpoint. So as we build out our templates within Moovila and we have all of our dependencies and budgeted hours and duration, as you apply those templates, whether it's multiple phases for multiple templates, we're going to follow those tickets through the life cycle of the project. And we're going to consolidate all of that for you in real time to show you, hey, this task has been created on 3 projects here. Our work estimates are being changed within that project, right? So our original budgeted hours were 8, and then now we've got, looks like Connie's changed it to 10, Fletch has changed it to 9, Connie's left it at 8 there. But then the most important thing, how long is that work actually taking you, right? And do you have the right resource? Are you budgeting a tier 1 engineer, but you're continuing to have to bring a tier 2 on this specific task? We can track that in real time, automate that analysis for you, right? Our work estimates exceeding our template value, you have the wrong resource assigned, and then you can easily update that in your templates with one click. So when we create that new project, we now have the right work estimate, we now have the right resource. With that, I'll pause for any questions and then hand it over to Vince.
Louis, I'll go ahead and share my screen now if you want to stop sharing while people are thinking about questions. All right. No questions so far?
I've got a question
Jim, go ahead.
for you guys. Yeah, so I think, one of the things that's trickling out as we sort of expand is the need for sort of this high level structure. And I think one of the things I struggle with right now is we have like a dedicated project team, just one guy and 1.5 resources essentially, but we're trying to build out a practice, right? And we struggle with several things, but I think one of the things we definitely struggle with is sort of flat fee projects versus time and material projects. As we sort of build these scopes out, we're finding that we're losing our hockey sticks on a lot of these projects as we build them out, right? And so, obviously there's the flat rate best practice. And I think one of the things I'd like to hear, you guys are obviously skilled in this. How do you make this transition from sort of break fix to flat fee? Is there any sort of best practices or scribe practices that you think MSPs would benefit from? And then the second question I have is, as you ferret this out, like, how do you suggest we would structure a project team if ultimately what we're looking for is to sort of successfully execute with a product like Moovila?
Yeah, so first question there, fixed fee, time, material. We've got 20 minutes left, and I don't want to take all the demo time. I could talk about that for a long time. So my background, I come from financial as well too. That's a tough one. It's going to depend on your organization. What I would say is try to pick, try to look at your projects, maybe go back at last year and look at all your projects that you closed out and see if there's any similarities between those. Say, we did, out of 100 projects, we did 30 firewalls. Take a look at those 30 firewalls, try to see, okay, we're confident, we know it takes us this amount every time per firewall, right? Of course, instances like that, you might need multipliers, how many firewalls, how many sites, how many locations. But really, it's, if you're in the middle of evaluating that and looking at it, I would probably try to flip the switch to just time and material until you can review all your fixed fee projects and see what you can standardize.
Okay, all right,
yeah.
Thank you.
Second question was structure. If you said you got one guy and 1.5 resources, is the one guy a PM or a PC, project coordinator?
So he's technically the project manager, but he's not like PMP certified and doesn't have the sort of management skills per se. He's just a good technician, right?
Yeah. Get him some training. Have you gotten him some training?
So apparently with PMP, you actually have to have the job for a period of time before you can apply for the PMP role. So that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, I would say even there's other resources out there that are more cost effective than PMP. Like CompTIA has got a Project Plus plan. There's a Google Project Plus plan. That's pretty good. We can send some of those afterwards and follow up as well too. But maybe get a little bit of training, and then, the hard one too is, you say he's got 1.5 resources. Try to draw that line as best you can. Make sure that the service desk isn't pulling them as whenever they can, because for the most part, what we see is project engineers are typically your more skilled engineers that like project work and don't necessarily want to sit on the help desk, but they still get pulled into escalations and whatnot. So just having a clear process around when they can get pulled over back to the help desk.
Awesome. Okay, cool. All right.
And Jim,
then,
we also do
sorry,
some
Kevin.
training, not to the degree that some of these courses would, but we also do some training during the onboarding to teach some of the fundamentals around dependency type, critical path. So that's part of our engagement structure when you're working with Lewis or someone on his team. So there is a level of education, but again, not to the degree that like a PMI or some of the others that Kate has mentioned offer.
Got it. All right.
We do. Yeah, we do. Just on top of that too.
Yeah.
Our tool, the way we help with it is it's structured around PMI best practices. We have an AI coach in there that walks you through if you have issues with your project, like, hey, you need durations. Hey, you need work estimates. Why is this an issue? We also have a couple customers who their PMs log their hours with us, and use that as more material to help verify their PMP certificate.
Awesome. I got one more question if you guys don't mind asking, sort of more product focused. So one of the biggest problems we have with ConnectWise, the challenges we have is sort of managing the projects, is redistributing the workloads as timelines change, right? Yeah. So do you guys, is there a way that you could show us maybe on this demo here, like how, we're held up that for whatever reason we had to pull a resource. How does that rescheduling happen with your tool?
Happy to show that, Jim, and that'll be over here in sort of the capacity area as well as the project area. So as we're going through, we're in the projects right now. I'm in the portfolio view. We'll look at tasks. So that's kind of a view of curated tasks. We call them tasks. They're tickets in ConnectWise. I know some of you guys have seen some demos in the past, so that would be familiar to you. And I think we have some customers on here too. But tasks equal tickets. The capacity area is bringing together all of the tasks that have been assigned to each individual. So you'd be able to see that. And I'll click on that in just a few minutes. Let's focus real quick on the project side of things, because I do want to cover some of the new stuff that Lewis had alluded to during the presentation. So in the project area, looking at an overall portfolio, the way I have this set up, there's a variety of different ways you can organize it. I have it grouped by a program. Every project can have a program, a category, product stages, customers, et cetera. So you can determine how you organize the overall portfolio. We found that MSP customers really like to have this view of everything that's going on, what's happening across projects that we're budgeting for, that maybe the sales team is working on. They're working with a customer, but we're helping them create a proposal or a budget. But then we also have brand new projects that I called it triage, that we're resourcing. So the contract's been signed. We need to figure out who's going to do the work. Then in this other section, it's the, what are our professional services engagements? What are our managed services? And over on the right-hand side is a visual of what's taking place across those projects. Now I have my favorites turned on here. So it's just a small section of the overall projects. Yours likely would look more like, 30, 40, 50 projects going on at any one time. But this is a nice bird's eye view of everything that's going on, as well as the status of the status of the forecast date, and are we going to hit that date? So Lewis was talking a bit about that, being able to sort of anticipate or at least communicate to the clients, are we on time or not? It really all starts with a good template that I'll dive into in just a minute. But if you think about what we're seeing here, like this yellow networks, it's a high priority. We see who the project manager is. We have a due date. We've communicated to the customer, let's say we'll be done on May 3rd. What our system is doing is looking at the way that project has been structured, dependencies, durations, et cetera, and looking at the inputs that we've received from ConnectWise, from the engineer. So they're updating tickets, et cetera, and saying, hey, based on what we know about the way this was set up and the inputs that we received, we're actually going to be 10 days late or 12 days late. We're not going to be able to deliver till May 15th. So as soon as we detect that you're going to be late, you're going to see a red indicator here, we're also going to degrade this health score. So that's that APMM that Lewis was talking about. So we're constantly scouring your active projects, looking for bad data, missing data, late tasks, milestones that might be missed. On that topic, these diamonds on the right-hand side, if you can see that, I'll blow it up just a little bit more. These diamonds are milestones that we've set within that project, and we've color-coded them for you yellow to let you know that there's a likelihood that that's going to be missed. Just mathematically speaking, we're doing the math, calendar math, going, hey, you have a start or finish date for this milestone. It doesn't look like we're going to be able to hit it. So immediately in these views, you're going to have a lot of information and understand where maybe a project manager or someone else needs some help. So I'm going to dive into a couple of these in a second, but I wanted to show you another view of the overall portfolio because this is a big deal for a lot of the MSPs that we're working with. I'm just going to flip over to this dashboard view, and there's a variety up here. I'm not going to look at all of these, but this is a really good one that's got a variety of different elements. So what are my open projects? We want to see a burn down of hours. So we quoted customers, a certain amount of hours. How many have we burned through thus far? So this is real-time information. It's a bi-directional sync. So whether that time is being captured in our system or it's being captured in ConnectWise, we don't care. But you'll have kind of up-to-the-minute reporting in this sort of dashboard example. This is like an account manager that needs to understand, what's happening with his or her customers. This could be a view of your overall business too. There's a lot of flexibility in how you build these templates. And then out the bottom, like what risks are we monitoring here? What notes have we captured this week and that sort of thing. So a lot of flexibility, whether you're tracking risks or status or, creating a dashboard that you want to prepare that you can just quickly export and send to your client to save a little time around the status meetings. You can certainly do that. Have one that's more focused on sort of their responsibilities in the project, if you will. So lots of flexibility in the dashboards, lots of great information. Going back to the timeline view, we talked a lot about the templates. Juan brought that up. I'm going to dive into this customer onboarding V3 template. I think onboarding was the topic here. So what you would likely see in this first view of this template, we're in the grid view, and this is analogous to the work plan in ConnectWise. So I'll go ahead and kind of expand that out. So you might see, you have a phase for discovery, a phase for planning, execution. And each of these rows represents what we call a task, what you call a ticket. You'll find, and Lewis can probably share more on this too, is that what we found is that there's a lot of information that's sort of in a ticket in the PSA, whether it's ConnectWise or others. And there's some value in terms of better reporting and accountability if you break that work out into multiple tasks and then use dependencies to kind of link them together in an order of operation. And I'm going to show you a visual of that in just a second. But you can see here there's predecessors and successors and multiple dependencies and dependency types. So all those things that you would expect out of a project management system, milestones here. A couple things I wanted to point out. These you can assign a resource type in the template. You may not know who the owner is going to be. If you always know that, hey, the PSA setup complete down here is always done by a person, you can assign that person in the template. And there's some benefits in terms of the automation and resourcing downstream. So the other two things I wanted to point out, a couple things I want to point out, work estimates are work estimate. How long do we think it's going to be, the labor associated with the duration in project management is the window within which we want to get that work done. So in this case, we're going to ask an account manager, or let's say a project manager, to do an hour and a half of work over a 1-day period. We also, this isn't part of the integration yet, but we do allow for the assignment of skills in the templates as well as attachments to the individual profiles. That helps with some of the resourcing too. And Jim, to your question earlier about identifying like capacity conflicts and balancing workload, that skills will come into play in a couple of screens later when I show you that particular functionality. So another view of this. So this is a great view, kind of scrolling down all the work effort that's associated with it. You might want to see this in that critical path view that we saw earlier. Let me go back to the power grid. and actually flip this over to the view, the new functionality. So imagine this is the customer onboarding. We've onboarded 5 or 10 new customers in the last however many weeks or months, and we want to see how are those projects performing versus plan. So we're in the template now. All you have to do is change the workspace of that template to what we call an analytics view. And now it's gathering all the data from all of those projects that were spawned off of it, as Lewis was describing. And now we can start to see variances. So I've got this one highlighted, access, network. We always had it estimated at 2 hours. The work actual average is 4.3 across all of those templates, or all of those projects that were spawned from this template. And so the work variance is 2.3 hours. So let's investigate that a little bit further. We click in there, and now that's that screen that we had in the deck earlier where the work estimate was 2 hours. The work actual ended up being 4.3. It's a 2.3 difference. So we're actually making recommendations. This is part of our AI agent too. So we're recommending not only that you up the estimate on this work to 4 hours, but also it may make sense to change this over to a professional services engineer from a solution architect. And the reason you might do that is if you look down here at all of the specific tasks that were assessed network that have been completed, you can see that there's work actuals there. If we click into any of them, we can say, well, that was done by a PS engineer. So we have the detailed level information that'll be important to you. And when you click into that one, that was also done by a PS engineer. So we're finding as we spawn these up, it's a different resource type, maybe at a different cost. Let's make some improvements to V4 of that template. So there's quite a bit more to it than that, but I wanted to give you a quick preview. And again, we've heard this. This was really a lot of conversation at IT Nation at our booth. And we said, you know what, we can do that. And we turned it around. And for those folks that are using Moovila today that are on the call, that would be available to you. So let me flip over to, I'm going to go back to the portfolio view for a second and just quickly go into an active project. We're going to go into this yellow. So we're seeing that this health score is really low. It's 157 out of 1,000. So we're going to drill in there. We can certainly see a Gantt chart if you wanted to, and the Gantt charts are interactive and really great. But a really great visual is that critical path view that that Lewis was pointing out earlier. So your critical path is the longest chain of dependent tasks that determine how long this project is going to be. And your critical path is always across the top of these visualizations. So each of these is a ticket for you in ConnectWise, a task in our system. You can see that these have been completed. These are all finish to start dependencies. You can change those. We built some lag and time in between these two, or some cushion, because we were waiting on some equipment to be ordered. But importantly, you can see that because of this delay, the 35-day delay that we're calling out here, that it's having an impact all the way downstream. So in many PSAs, you're manually going in, maybe spending a couple of hours a day is what we've heard recently, going in and updating ticket start and end dates. So you have accurate information in the PSA. Within our system, we're going to show you, and I'll drill on this a little bit further. We're going to show you what the original scheduled date was based on the template, and put a red X next to it saying, hey, this is not going to happen now. So this test and configuration that's owned by Kyle Pitts, he's kind of working off some bad information because this is degraded. The best dates to give him right now are 3/17 through 4/5. So we're going to do that calendar math for you. And if this is, let's say the equipment gets delivered. Whoops, sorry, clicked on the wrong button. Give me 1 second. If that equipment gets delivered today, we need to update all these tickets downstream with the new dates. All you have to do is click on update here. We're going to show you all of the broken dates and then all of the best next dates to use. If you're working on weekends, I had a meeting with a ConnectWise customer earlier in the week, and they said, hey, we do installs on the weekends. Like, we need to be able to schedule people on the weekends. You can do that in the system on a project by project basis or at a organizational level. But once I hit update, it's going to update all the dates here. It's going to update everything in ConnectWise, all of your tickets in ConnectWise, those corresponding tickets. So you always have good information, and you're saving, if you're doing it today, you're saving yourself countless hours throughout the year. Jim, to one of your questions about capacity conflicts, one of the factors that goes into that score, which is a very low score on this one, 159, is capacity conflict. So we can tell you as soon as we detect something mathematically that there's too much work associated with one person within the project or across the portfolio, we're going to let you know that that score will degrade at your portfolio level. And then we're going to show you where those are. So this is saying we got 7 capacity conflicts. I'm going to click on that 7 in this view or in the Gantt chart view or whatever else. We're going to highlight those for you. Click again to zoom into them. And now you'd be able to see, hey, we have too much work assigned to Kyle that mathematically it's not going to get done. So what do we do? Let's figure out a way to balance that workload out. What you can do from a variety of different screens, let me just zoom that back out. And I'm just going to go for the sake of demonstration, go back into this view. And let's say we need to move Kyle off of that task. If we click on his name, our system knows now, based on your template, what the resource type was, any skills or certifications that are needed to get that work done. We know exactly what those dates are. We're doing that date math for you. And then we're giving you the ability here to understand who's got the available capacity for that work, and you can reassign it here. And who's got the capacity for that work within that time frame.
5-minute warning, Vince. I
Cool.
know you're speeding through.
Yeah.
Sorry, if you want to allow for any questions or anything.
Yeah, I'll do another minute just to cover a couple of other things. Of course, dashboards at the project view that you can share with customers. Going to sort of a zoomed out resource view. If I click on this capacity area, so what this is doing is easy to set up, of course. These are current projects over the next 4 weeks. So those that have already been contracted, our system will allow you to identify the amount of work target, let's say, that we want to give each person by person name or by resource type. So you see project manager and PSA engineer down here. And what we're doing is looking at the work estimates across those date ranges on all the tasks that are owned. And we're showing you clearly that, hey, February next week, February 18th through the 25th, Brad is going to be way underwater by like a person and a half. So the question might be, okay, what projects is he on? Like, we need to understand that so we can shift some stuff around. Because this is an integrated database, our project and resource capacity, if you click there and maybe just change the grouping type to project, we can see that he's on this migration, this onboarding, this migration. And that's what's going to, all of that together is creating a bottleneck for you next week. So as soon as we detect that kind of stuff, you're going to know about it through all of the dashboards. And you can also balance the workload from here. So we need to find someone else that can take this on. There's that same screen, so you can start balancing out that workload. Last but not least, going over to the tasks. Lewis mentioned some of the new scheduling functionality that we have, or scheduled events. So that listen to the MSPs, we built that into the system, so you can have scheduled events associated with tasks. And there's quite a bit of alerting that we're doing to let you know, hey, we've missed this scheduled event, or this scheduled event actually falls outside of the start and due date of that task or ticket. That could be a problem. We want you to know about it so you can sort of address that before it actually does become a client issue. So tons more to the system than that, but as a quick overview of, for those that hadn't seen it and for those that have, some of the new features that we've just released. So I'll open it up to questions. I think we just have a few minutes left. And while people are sort of digesting, I would say, oh, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, yeah. So this is Chris Higgins, and so just in the templates in the budgeting of time, one thing, anytime I've tried to utilize tool in the past, there's some things like you mentioned, the firewall, that be pretty consistent. It takes us 6 hours to do a firewall, whatever it is, versus things that are the budget is very much based on user count, like, so onboarding, right? So migrating mailboxes from G Suite to 365. When you're applying budgeting hours, can you set up like tasks or items that are quantity based versus more acute, consistent?
How do we recommend that, Lewis?
Yeah, multipliers, right? Essentially saying, hey, firewall takes us 2 hours. We've got 6 factories we got to do it at, or whatever. It's 16 total. Today, we don't have a factor. We've heard that often, and we actually are working on that one right now. But what we typically do, and it depends on how big of a project. I've got a customer that they're doing a SharePoint migration, and they're committed like 100 hours a month for the entire year. So we've just got one ticket for each month, and then just have that total hours. So today it's a little bit of knowing that information, make sure we call it out and reflect that, and then also have that called out so we can reference it back in analytics. So but we've heard that a number of times, and I expect we'll have it into the platform here shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And if you do have other questions that come up, I think we had our email addresses in the initial slides. Feel free to shoot us a note or what have you. Happy to chat with you over email, or if you want a more detailed demonstration or anything, just let us know. Cool.
All right.
I think we're right at
Perfect.
the top of the hour.
Yeah. And I will, all those resources that Kate posted, I will share those on the follow-up email that everybody gets. So if you didn't get a chance to grab those from the chat, you will receive those on the follow-up emails along with the you guys' contact information.
Super.
And also the recording. So we're recording this. So if you feel like there was value in here, it's like, man, I wish my project coordinator was able to attend. Right? So she sent a message. She's like, hey, I need to share this. The recording will be there. So share with your project coordinators, project managers to take a look and follow up with a deeper dive with Vince or Lewis or Kate, and then they will be more than happy to share that with you. So this has been very, very informative, very interesting, learning about how the need to manage effective projects has grown within the with MSP world, when it comes to having a good structure, to having successful projects, being able to proactively monitor the projects and using automation. We keep hearing automation all the time, and how we can leverage those tools to help us be more effective. So if you're using your project management with inside ConnectWise, and you're here and you really want to be up here, you really need to enhance that. And that's what we've seen today with all those additional features, template analytics, critical path, all the different views, monitoring if you're looking at the overall profitability of your project, all those things that we're always asking for or wondering about. It looks like we're able to get those. So thank you so much for the demo, Vince, Lewis, and Kate, for helping us coordinate this for our group.
Our pleasure. Thank
it.
you. Thank you for the invitation, Juan. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll see you. We'll see you in Chicago in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely. We'll be there. We're still trying to figure out the cornhole tournament.